Good evening and welcome to Orenda Books at Bedtime. I'm Karen Sullivan, publisher of Orenda Books, and tonight we have a special treat for you. We're going to be hearing from Helen Fitzgerald. She's the author of The Cry, the BBC hit drama, and she's going to be reading to you from one of the most talked about books of the moment. It's a book called Worst Case Scenario, and this is what it's about. Mary Shields is a moody, acerbic probation officer dealing with some of Glasgow's worst cases, and her job is on the line. Liam McDowell was imprisoned for murdering his wife, and he's published a series of letters to the dead woman in a book that's made him an unlikely hero and a poster boy for men's rights activists. Liam is released on license under Mary's supervision, but things are far from simple. Mary develops a poisonous obsession with Liam and his world, and when her son and Liam's daughter form a relationship, Mary will stop at nothing to impose her own brand of justice with devastating consequences. A heart-pounding, relentless and chilling psychological thriller, rich with deliciously dark and unapologetic humor, Worst Case Scenario is also a perceptive, tragic and hugely relevant book by one of the most original names in crime fiction. And this is what people are saying about Worst Case Scenario. Ambrose Perry says outrageous, extremely funny and ultimately devastating. Mark Edwards says it's a dark, comic masterpiece that manages to be both excruciatingly tense and laugh out loud funny at the same time. Aaron Kelly says shocking, gripping and laugh out loud hilarious, brilliant. Ian Rankin says one of the most extraordinary main characters you'll meet between the pages of a book. And Mark Billingham says dark humor and darker truths permeate a thrilling crime novel. Nobody writes like Helen Fitzgerald. Mary is an unforgettable protagonist. She's in the full flush of menopause and experiencing a number of symptoms. She's at the tail end of a job that she hates, and she takes justice into her own hands. She becomes a bit of a vigilante. Now, this is a really funny book, like darkly funny book, hand over eyes funny book. This is an important book, and in the best tradition of noir, it prods the underbelly of society. In this case, the probation service and the social services, and comes up with some pretty grim reading. It's a page turner, it's nail biting, it's funny, it's absolutely magnificent, and I'm really thrilled to hand you over now to Helen to read from Worst Case Scenario.
Hi there, I'm Helen Fitzgerald, and this is my book Worst Case Scenario. I'm just going to read you the first 4 pages of it. So it's part 1, The Wife Killer. Every time Mary tried to relax in a bath, a paedophile ruined it. Tonight it was McKinley, who she'd visited on the way home and who had sat on the sofa for 10 minutes with one or more balls hanging out of his shorts. She still wasn't sure if it was deliberate. Probably not, as Mary was 52, not 5. I'm not allowed to think about that, Mary said out loud, and McKinley's balls disappeared into the bubbles. As ever, another case invaded immediately. Not a sex offender, but a far more palatable wife killer who she'd be meeting for the first time tomorrow. 10 years ago, Dr. Liam McDowell took his beloved wife to Loch Fyne for oysters, and on the way home, drove the car off a bridge. A lot of murder-suicides seem to end this way, with one party still alive, usually the prick whose idea it was. Mary put her head under water and called on her victim empathy skills, imagining she was McDowell's dead wife, Bella. Liam's in the car beside me, belted in as I am. The water's rising and I'm running out of breath. Please do something because I can't get out. He's undoing his seatbelt. Why won't mine budge? I can't define the look he gives me. Is it love? Before he forces his way out of the car. Mary lifted her head out of the bathwater, took a deep breath and repeated, I must not think about that. This mantra had helped keep her sane enough. Home was precious. Work must not invade. I must not think about that. A sacred rule that was impossible to obey, and the only one she wanted to. The next morning, Mary pressed her ID against the flex machine. She was 41 hours up. If she didn't use the hours by the end of the month, which was today, they would be wiped. She wanted to smash the machine with her forehead. Instead, she ruminated as she gathered the paperwork for the prison meeting. Fucking management, fucking job. Mary's respect for her impoverished employer had been dissipating for years, but had slipped substantially over the last week. It was a week ago that Mary was scolded by her boss's boss for allegedly breaching flexi-time rules. The inciting incident involved lunch, which workers were required to take, even though there was no time, nowhere, and no thing to eat. If workers didn't clock in and out at lunchtime, they were docked an extra 30 minutes. Mary's pod of 6 therefore removed their IDs from their necks at noon and took turns to go downstairs and flex each other in and out. It was a futile exercise, as no one ever had time to take the minutes they saved, but it provided some comfort. Once rage-filled poverty busters, Mary and her pod now rebelled by pulling lanyards at noon. "What are you doing?" Mary's boss's boss Shirley had said when she caught her gang pinging the machine 7 days previously. Mary had been getting red mist attacks for 18 months and could feel one coming on. Weight-related insults screamed within. She must suppress them. "It's prohibited to use another person's ID," Shirley had said. "Is it?" Mary continued to ping. "Look how many hours I'm up, and there's no way for me to use them." "In that case, what's the point in what you're doing, Mary?" Using someone's name in a sentence should be banned. Mary hung there for seconds before she said, "Well, it's all right for you, Shirley. You obviously have plenty of time to eat lunch." Oops. Because of that incident, a meeting was being convened by Shirley and Mary's boss to discuss the potential need for an urgent meeting with Mary. News quickly spread throughout the office. Mary was a registered flex offender.
Thanks very much, Helen. That was incredible. And thank you all for watching. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Orenda Books at Bedtime.